So today is May 26, 2021. Wow. Um, as a preliminary matter, my name is Pete Pecos. I'm the chair for the Newbury Planning Board. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Planning Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Larry Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. George Morse.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Leslie Matthews.
Yes.
Thank you, Leslie. Woody Knight.
Yes.
Thank you, Woody. And Mary Stone.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. Town staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Martha Taylor.
Yes.
Hello, Martha. Emily Noble.
Yes.
Hello, Emily. Anticipated speakers, presenters on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Tom Z.
Yes.
All right, Tom. Phil Henry.
Yes.
Hello, Phil.
Hi.
Doug DeShanks.
He is here. I saw him come in
Okay. Adam True.
and I don't see him yet.
Okay. Scott Cameron.
He should be here shortly.
Okay. Good evening. This is May 26th, open meeting of the Newbury Planning Board. It's being conducted remotely consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order supersedes the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For this meeting, the Newbury Planning Board is convening by video conference via Zoom as posted on the Planning Board's agenda, which can be found on the town's website and which identifies how the public may join. You may join us by going to http://zoom.us and entering meeting ID 832-7141-3056 or by calling 929-205-6099 and entering the meeting ID number when prompted. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video and or telephone conference. Meeting materials provided to the board members prior to the meeting for review. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and, if needed, share information to the screen. Please state your intention before you have been called. Before we turn to the first item on the agenda, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and ensure accurate meeting minutes. I, as the chair, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After speakers conclude their remarks, I will go down the list of board members, inviting each by name to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, for all attendees except board members and staff, please remember to mute your computer with the mute button or with your phone, *6 to toggle to mute or unmute when you are not speaking. Please use earbuds, earphones with tablets or cell phones. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Please be aware that the video participants can see you and that you should take care not to screen share your video. Anything that you broadcast can be captured by the recording. For any responses, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If board members wish to engage in discussion with other members, please do so through me, taking care to identify yourself when you wish to speak. Public comment. There will be an opportunity for public comment and questions during public hearings. After board members have spoken, I will afford the public an opportunity to comment and or ask questions. I will see questions and comments through the Zoom raise hand function. For video conference participants, to raise your hand, hover over the bottom of the Zoom window below the photo gallery and click on the yellow hand that appears. If you don't see a yellow hand, click on the participants buttons. A list of participants will open and display on your right. At the bottom of this participant area, you'll see an option to click on raise hand. Please ensure that your name is fully and correctly displayed on the participant list. You may rename yourself by using the more functions next to your name. For telephone participants, to raise your hand in the Zoom meeting, hit *9 on your phone keypad. I will then allow questions and comments from members of the public who have raised their hands in the order in which they are listed, which is determined by the order in which people click on the raise hand function. Each participant will be called on to provide his or her name and address, and then ask a question or make a comment. I will afford the applicant participant or his or her representative the opportunity to reply. Your hand will be lowered when you've been given the floor for your questions. I will then continue down the list of those in the raise hand column and will again afford the participant applicant representative an opportunity to speak. Should there be any physical or electronic submittal of questions or concerns, they will be noted for the record, and again, the participant applicant representative will be afforded the opportunity to speak if the issues raised have not yet been addressed. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, let's see. We have two meetings this evening, two public hearings. So we're going to try to keep each public hearing 30 to 45 minutes, max if possible, out of courtesy to the applicants, other speakers on the agenda, and members of the public in attendance and board members as we try to do with this process. Okay, so let's see. Let me pop over to the agenda here. First public hearing is a concurrent public hearing for 15 Coleman Road, map R02, lots 12 and 13. Applicant owner Zendenko LLC and Tom Zendenko, manager, continued for May 5th, 2021, an OSRD special permit application, an OSRD definitive subdivision plan application. Okay, let me drop this down. So I have a note here that Martha, that Joe did pick up an updated definitive sub-plan division documents yesterday.
Yes, yesterday morning.
Okay, and I saw an email that came out late this afternoon with some comments.
That's correct.
Okay, I don't know if board members had an opportunity to look at that or digest those comments, but I just want to keep that on the record. Tom Z, do you have anything new to be presented today?
Yeah, pretty much just dialogue. Can you hear me?
We can, Tom. Go right ahead.
Okay, great. Thanks. Tom Zarico, 15 SD Street, Amesbury. Yeah, just I'd like to just update. No presentation materials. Really just update and hopefully take some action on a few things this evening. Since our last meeting, we also met with conservation. There aren't any outstanding issues there. They are, I don't want to speak for them, but they are at the point of closure. I asked them to hold off closing the hearing until after planning is done. We are using the same plans in both applications. So we wanted to make sure before anybody closes a hearing that everything is is complete and ready to go. A couple of the minor revisions that we have made since the last meeting was to add parking spaces in the island, in the cul-de-sac. We received feedback from fire that was fine. And you can see, in fact, Phil, I don't know if you can pull up that landscaping plan. Martha, can you let Phil pull that up?
Yeah, hold just a sec. Okay, Phil, you should be all set. And you may want to, there you go.
See that?
Yeah, you might want to enlarge it just a tad more, Phil, if you could.
Much better.
Much better.
Yes.
Okay. Here in this, this is the Chris Huntress's detailed plan that shows the parking, shows heavily landscaped areas. One of the things that we did modify in response to the dialogue of the last meeting was to reconsider the location of the studio building. We moved that to, there actually was enough room to put that on the lot with the other buildings. And we show heavy landscaping screen out front of lot 7. I know there was, we had a little bit of dialogue about this at the last meeting. And those were responses, attempts to try to address the concerns that were expressed by the board at that meeting. That landscape screen, for reference, is about 90 feet back from the pavement in Coleman Road. So it's quite a ways back. So it's a good, it's a good heavy buffer and quite a ways back from the street. I still want to express my concerns about moving the studio building. Martha, maybe you can comment on that too, or anybody else who's been in there. I'm still concerned about that, about whether or not it's going to survive that, or if it's material to the process. So I'm certainly willing to attempt it or to rebuild it. But the more we look at that, it is in pretty compromised shape. But we'll do what's what we're asked to do there. We did look at the responses back from Joe Sirwatka. Most of those were very routine responses. Most of the very few lingering items are administrative items, like the surveyor's stamp on the subdivision plan, which we needed to wait until after the closing, really, of this of at least the OSRD hearing in order to complete that plan and have it stamped. And one minor comment that I think that requires something that for Phil to either add or change relative to drainage. And Phil, do you want to speak to that for just a moment?
Sure. Joe had asked for manhole risers at the infiltration system. What we had proposed is essentially a plastic riser that will be set vertical on the infiltration system via pipe fittings and reducers to get a 24-inch riser pipe set vertically up. And then from there, we said that the contractor shall follow the installation of the manhole to show how to put the frame on there, i.e. brick and concrete. I think he's asking for a detail of that. I think we can do that. I think it's self-explanatory, and I think it stands on its own via the notes that we have, but that's really the only thing technical that I saw. So we can certainly follow up with final plans showing a more detailed detail. But I just wanted to explain that it's a fairly simple installation.
Thanks, Phil. The other item that's outstanding, and it's outstanding because we haven't resolved necessarily the private versus public road. There is an operation and maintenance plan that is in the stormwater management report, but that may have to be clarified depending upon the determination of public versus private way. Which I know is something that needs to be, I guess, determined at this point, regardless with the OSRD decision, and then with the follow-up of the subdivision decision. So hopefully those are the items that we modified, revised. Nothing really that technical, but hopefully we'll be able to close the hearing on the OSRD. Agree to the lots and issue that decision, and hopefully have a pending decision for the subdivision application, because I don't think there's anything technical of a technical nature or anything that's outstanding at this point, unless somebody brings something up to me. And I think that's it.
Great, Tom. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. And let me see if the board members have any questions. Larry, do you have any questions at this time?
Not on what Tom just presented, no.
Beautiful, thank you. George, do you have any questions at this time?
I do not have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, do you have any questions at this time?
No, I do not.
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Woody, do you have any questions at this time?
No, I do not.
Thanks, Woody. Mary, do you have any questions at this time?
No, I don't.
Okay, Martha, any concerns thus far?
No.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So we, at our last meeting, we asked, we directed the planning director to do a draft decision of the OSRD. special permit. But before we go there, I just want to find out if there's any questions from the public, any public comments or questions. Do we have any new comments, Martha?
We have not received any new written comments.
Okay.
I do see a couple of raised hands. Would you like to take those?
Okay, yeah, and I would ask the ones that we have people identify themselves and their address. So who do we have first?
So Ben Armstrong is first.
Okay, Ben, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. This is actually a question probably more for the board than for Tom.
Well, Ben, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna need your address for Martha.
Oh, sorry, 30 High Road in Newbury.
Thanks very much, Ben. Go ahead.
Yep, no problem. So going back to the last meeting, there had been discussion about this being about the existing house being a low, I'm sorry what the specific term is, but affordable housing. Is that still the case? And if, I guess that's my first question.
So we don't know what the applicant's final decision or determination is with regards to that because we haven't been told. So I don't have an answer to your question.
Okay, so the next part to that, I think, is a concern that I have about that, and it has to do with the way that this is structured. So it's a very old home in need of a substantial amount of renovation, and my concern is this: that if you make that affordable housing, the person who buys it, pretty much by definition, is going to be, at their limit to purchase a house. And by the nature of this, the incentive for Tom is to do as little renovation as possible because he's not going to get a lot of money back for it. So I guess my concern is this: that you're setting up a nice old house with a barn and now a studio to be owned by someone who's really going to have a financial problem maintaining it as we go forward. And that's sort of my chief concern about how the board is approaching this.
Sure, Ben, you bring up a very good point, and we actually had this discussion at our last meeting, and we kind of had the understanding that that would be a hurdle if we were to have that explored by the applicant. So your point is very well taken, and I see that Tom is raising his hand, so I think he might like to address that. I can see enthusiasm with the hand raised. So let's see what Tom has to say. Tom, it's all yours.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. I appreciate the comments. The long and the short of it is I'm not really amenable to that, making that an affordable unit. It really doesn't make sense, mostly for those reasons, Ben, that you have laid out there. And that house requires some care and requires some attention no matter what. And there's also the bigger picture on my end, which I've expressed every time we've discussed this about the unit count and the dedication of space here, that there's financial realities that I need to contend with on a project, and that does not make it easier. So I'm really not amenable to that. I think the best thing is to and I'm, so I've built quite a bit of affordable housing. I know it's involved. I just don't think that's an appropriate place for it at this point. On the other hand, one of the other things that did come to mind, and if it's something that the board would like to see, whether it has to do with OSRD or more likely with the subdivision conditions, I don't mind putting in a deed restriction on the house and barn that they're to remain there, because I don't intend to own it indefinitely. But what I've expressed in terms of it, my intention to have those structures, at least those two structures, stay. I want that to be clear.
Thank you very much. I think that answers a chief concern, and especially if it were stipulated that they should remain, because I think it's a valuable part of the neighborhood. I think that would be wonderful, but that's great. Thank you.
That's always been the intent. So I certainly don't have a problem memorializing that.
Thank you, Tom, and Ben, thanks for your question. Martha, who do we have next?
Next is, excuse me, Linda Senecal.
Linda, name and address, please. Thanks so much.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. My name is Linda Senecal and I live at 25 Coleman Road. I am not an abutter, but Dale McCausland and Gary McCausland have asked me to present something that they've written. They're not available tonight. So what they'd like me to say is we just want to voice our support for this builder and his proposed plans. We feel he is being genuine and is making great effort to preserve the integrity of the open space. We are grateful he is willing to dedicate so much of the land to the public and offering to groom the beautiful walking trails as well. During the last meeting, it was proposed by the planning board that the road into the development be a private road and a homeowners association would be responsible for the maintenance. My question is this: how does the public have the right to enter and park in a private way to access those public trails? Lastly, we hope that there can be, excuse me, a meeting of the minds with this builder and he's allowed to proceed with his requests. We are concerned with so many recommended changes by the board to his original scope of the project, we will possibly cause the builder to have a change of heart and sell the property. We feel we run the risk of another developer, as was interested earlier, to come in and propose a larger development. And the neighborhood and the public would be negatively impacted by potentially losing the benefit of the open space and walking trails.
Great. Linda, thanks very much for the letter and supporting your neighbors.
Excuse me, would it be possible to get a copy of that letter? That would be very helpful. If you could email it to me.
Sure.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Martha, with regards to, or maybe I'll direct this to Larry, with regards to public crossing private land access on a roadway, that has been established, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there are public ways, obviously, and then there are private ways that are open to the public. And the only real distinction is who has the maintenance obligation. And as Martha pointed out, I think at the last meeting, that there are protections for property owners that permit recreational uses on their property. We've done this before. It's not at all unusual. And the thing about it, from my perspective, to perhaps address some of Tom's concerns, is they're looking for dimensional waivers on the road, and it's been our policy, because the dimensional waiver, when you reduce the size of the road, the pavement width, et cetera, it makes it very difficult for DPW. So since I've been on the board, whenever we've seen those types of waivers, we have insisted that the way remain private. But it doesn't in any way, to my knowledge, impact the right of the public to the use of that way.
Great, Larry.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification and the 2 points. Those are very, very, very valuable. Thank you very much. Any other public comments or questions, Martha?
Meg Alfoni is raising her hand.
Hi, Meg Alfoni from 15 Sunset Drive on Plum Island. Tom Z, and I apologize, I'm going to butcher your last name if I try to say it. I'd like to go back to this house that's sitting there on the beginning part of the property. And I know that there were some discussions about turning it into affordable housing. And I believe you just said that you didn't think that was appropriate and that you would do a covenant so that the house would always stay there. What are your plans for that house? Are you just planning on selling it as just a piece of real estate, or what's the plan?
That's a good question. I am primarily a new home builder. I have done plenty of rehab work. This house has some really nice features. It's got some great spaces in it. I'm prepared to renovate it and fix it and improve it. But honestly, I would rather somebody who has a specific passion for it and intends to live there do it themselves, because there's a lot of things that need to be personalized in a structure like this, working with what is there. Though I have my own judgments as to what I would do, I think the person who's going to live there is probably best equipped to make it to do the job the best. So my preference would be to sell it. to somebody who has the passion and intent to live there. But if we don't find that person, then we'll undertake the renovations and the fixes ourselves.
And obviously this is a for-profit deal that you're working on, but you would never consider partnering with somebody like Habitat for Humanity, excuse me, to rehab it and then have it become affordable housing?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm very familiar with Habitat. I engaged with them on a few fronts. It changes the economic complexion of this development for me quite a bit. You know, I've been I think very upfront about what we're trying to accomplish, the things that we can do, that we're able to do in terms of community benefit here. We've tried our best. We're preserving a large amount of property. We're really doing some nice things with it, or proposing to. I've said before that I can't do everything. I'm trying to do everything that I can reasonably do and still be fair to myself and my family. That's really what it comes down to. I don't think it's something that could work on the Habitat program, to tell you the truth.
Okay, but if it ever comes to the point where selling it might not be profitable for you, given the requirements of fixing it up and that kind of thing, if you would just keep that in the back of your mind, I'd appreciate it.
I have a very open mind to creative solutions to everything.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your
Okay.
time.
Thank you, Meg. Appreciate it. Anyone else, Martha?
Dan Emerson.
Okay. Dan, a name and address, please. Thank you.
Hey there, are you able to hear me?
We can, Dan.
Excellent. My name is Dan Emerson from 22 Forest Street in Byfield. Just real quick, I appreciate the feedback that the developer had given regarding his inability to convert that unit into affordable housing. So I just wanted to register another voice in favor of that in town. So this comment is more towards the board than towards the developer. But like, as we all know, affordable housing is something that we could really use. We're under. And for a great development like this, like I appreciate all the work that the developer has done to make something that works for the community. And I just love for more situations to come up where the affordable housing component can be one of the pieces of that. Thank you.
Dan, we appreciate your comments, and the board is diligent in trying to facilitate affordable housing. We've had kind of an extensive discussion with Tom Z and his team to try to make that happen, but I'm not sure that it will happen on this project. But Dan, it's definitely on our radar screen, and it's something that this board is passionate about. So thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Martha, do we have anyone else?
Chris Armstrong is raising his hand.
Great. Chris Armstrong, name and
Hi.
address, please.
Yep, my name is Chris Armstrong. My address is 1 Coleman Road. I'm on the farm that abuts this Tom's property. Just a point of information having to do with the septic systems for the houses to be built. Do they all have their individual septic systems, or are they cabbaging in some way on the existing septic system for the historic house?
So Chris, I'm going to direct that to Tom. Tom, I don't know if you want to answer that or if you want your engineer to do that.
Yeah, I can certainly address that. The intent at this point is that it be a common system, Chris, that the best soils, in fact, the best soils, we tested soils everywhere to prove the viability of the lot count. That's part of what we needed to do. But as it turns out, the best soils are in that particular spot, and it really provides the least impactful way of dealing with septic.
Can that septic system take on the additional burden of 6 more houses?
Oh, it's completely new system. Completely new system.
Has this all been through the Board of Health or?
That it has to go through the Board of Health still, Chris. It has to be designed to their standards and has to be proven to their standards. It has been designed, but again, we had a few unknowns here that prevented us from filing that, like specifically the lot count that needs to be designed to. So we wanted to make sure we knew that before submitting it, because if we were wrong, we would have had to resubmit and refile on that.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you participating tonight. Good to see you. Any other individuals out there, Martha, for public question or comments?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay, great. Let me see if, do we have any departmental comments that you need to enter into the record, Martha?
The only one is the one that was mentioned previously from the fire chief, dated May 18th, regarding his approval of parking in the cul-de-sac turnaround for public access to the parking space, and his suggestion that signage, especially in the circle, be installed to keep people from parking on the street if there's any overflow.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me just see if the board members have any questions on anything that's been presented or discussed thus far. Larry, do you have any questions, sir?
No.
Great. George, do you have any questions, sir?
Yeah, the questions I would have deal with a private road. Right now, the proposed decision says it's a private road that we would be dealing with here. And I'd like to see that addressed somehow and get that resolved tonight. And also on how to take care of the lot for the moving of the barn. Either having it measured and rebuilt or leaving it as it is. I think that's a question that the board has to resolve with the builder. And I'd like to see that done. We can get that done tonight.
You mean the small shed, George?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
great. Okay, got it. Thank you. Leslie, do you have any questions or comments on what's been discussed thus far?
Excuse me. I just want a clarification. When you come into the development, will it all be one way in and one way out for traffic wise?
One row.
I'm not sure I understand.
So you come in when you go around the cul-de-sac
Yeah.
because of the additional parking for people out there. Would it be more?
Oh, okay. I understand your question. No, this cul-de-sac is designed to standards. It's actually, I believe, 30 feet wide of pavement in the cul-de-sac. There is plenty of room for two-way traffic. In fact, we designed this cul-de-sac very specifically to the fire apparatus that exists in the community to make sure that that paving diameter on the outside and inside could accommodate those vehicles in any circumstances. So that's not a question that we haven't thought about. It's more than sufficient on two-way traffic everywhere. In fact, wider than most paving surfaces that I put in most other cul-de-sacs that have islands.
That's great. I mean, I have had a few different people with their concerns that, it was going to be difficult for hard in and hard out on development, but,
No, I can assure you not as far as that goes. Honestly, we've done this in a quite large cul-de-sac and quite a wide paved area in the bigger picture.
And if you can save the studio, it would go, if you're looking at the house, it would go to the left of the house? Yes,
about 25 to 30 feet from the butternut tree that we're trying to preserve as well.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a cool
which
thing.
is certainly sufficient clearance there. And where you see it, we're talking about preserving the main box of that studio or trying to or recreate it. There's two more
Yeah,
recent additions.
Yeah,
that-
there's additions, so just the main, the body.
Yeah. Which is actually smaller than what you see on the landscape plan that Phil had
Mhm.
pulled up. Chris Hunter's carried over the entire building, which was not our intent. It's actually about a 18 or 19 feet by 21 or so feet. It would not interfere in that if we were to, relocate it or rebuild it there, it would not interfere with the main house's view of the beautiful next door property, the Armstrong property, which is something that's a tremendous view, and we don't want to interfere with that.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you, Leslie. Woody, any questions or comments?
No, no, I don't.
Great. Thank you. Mary, any questions or comments?
No, Tom answered the question that I had. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, let's see where we are here. So we have a review draft decision that we're going to be going through. And Larry, I'd like to do this as we did before. We could go section by section. And we do want to indicate also that town council has agreed to review this document as well, once we kind of finally get through this. So Martha, can you screen share that? And Larry, would you mind doing our little our discussion?
Sure.
Is that big enough, or would you like me to make it bigger?
A tad bigger if you could.
Yep. How's that? A little more?
Well, looks good. to me.
Perfect.
I feel like if I can read it, so can anybody else at this point.
All right. So do you want me to go through the first sections, or?
I think we know the procedural history, and I think we understand the first component. And just a clarification on the dates, Martha?
Well, today's date is highlighted,
Right.
not knowing whether it's going to be closed tonight or continued. So
Okay, great.
Question to the chair.
Yes, George.
In Martha, in paragraph, we're looking at number 3, just put a comma after consultant. This is a big change. You should look at it. That's the only one I could.
Thank you, George. I appreciate that very much.
Thanks, George.
I'm usually accused of putting in too many commas.
I love commas.
So do
It's
I.
a tipping point. That's what that is. Thank you, George.
All right, so the project description, I think we're all comfortable with.
Yes.
Great. Continuing on, we have one comment modification, which is the existing shed workshop as to where it's going to be relocated, and to document what's going to happen with this. And do we want to have this discussion now, I think, because the shed has been proposed to be moved onto lot 1, and then it would be deeded with lot 1, if I understand correctly. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, that's the intent. Yeah.
Okay. And so the intent is if it cannot be moved, it would be reconstructed.
Correct.
Okay, and that would also be part of the process. Okay, does that help you, Martha, with that language? It'll be relocated onto lot 1, and will remain deeded, as well as the original home and barn.
Right, so I'm just going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to delete this comment. I'm just going to highlight that.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to write in lot 1. This is not the way it's going to
Right.
read, but just as a,
Because this will be cleaned up with Brian too, correct? Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, and it should, the language should also appear in the conditions of approval as well.
right.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you. So we'll continue on. Submitted materials and information which have been documented to date are all recorded. And we have some modification in dates with regards to the testing that was performed. Okay, those are appropriate. And we have a new letter from our fire chief, which was just recently, May 18th, okay, 2021. Perfect. Thank you, Martha. With regards to findings and determinations. Okay, I'm gonna let you drive, Larry.
All right, how do you want me to just read them off and ask for a hold from any of the members?
I think that'd be appropriate.
All right. So findings and determinations. The board makes the following specific findings and determinations. One, this matter is properly before this board and the applicant is qualified to apply for the OSRD special permit requested. So I'm not hearing no hold, so go on. Two, the land that is the subject of this application contains 31.69 plus or minus acres total, consisting of 25.18 plus or minus acres of continuous upland and 6.51 plus or minus acres of wetlands in 3 separate locations on the site. One wetland area bisects the site and is traversed by an existing farm road, which connects the upland and the southwesterly portion of the site, fronting on Coleman Road, with a large portion of upland in the northeasterly portion of the site. The upland area is currently a combination of developed area, open lawn, and woodlands. The proposed open space area consists of 20.67 approximate acres of continuous upland, or 82% of the total upland on the site, with a larger undeveloped area shown on the overall layout and open space plan as a lot 8 containing 27.18 plus or minus acres total. Okay, anything with number 2? All right, number 3, the applicant has properly filed an application with the planning board for an OSRD special permit for a non-buildable open space lot and 7 single-family residential building lots, one of which shall contain the existing house and barn. And I suppose, do we want to add in the language? Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. In 6 of which shall be new building lots. The lots are located on the front portion of the property in the area which is already developed. The road into the property will be a 402-foot long cul-de-sac, which is to be a private road. The applicant is seeking waivers from the requirements of the Town of Newbury subdivision rules and regulations for 1, identification of trees over 6 inch in diameter, 2, environmental analysis, 3, width of the roadway right of way, 4, diameter and pavement width at the cul-de-sac turnaround, 5, drainage piping, and 6, sidewalks, bike walks. Consistent with section 97-5C10, the applicant is also seeking approval for reduction of the frontage and area dimensional requirements for the lots. Any holds on that? The point I was going to make is I don't know if it's appropriate. We can probably talk to town council about this, whether or not we need to mention the studio in this paragraph or not. It may not be necessary. 4, the applicant has established the basic maximum number of dwelling units that could be placed on the property with a conventional subdivision by means of the yield plan as 5 units. Continuing on, the applicant has agreed to designate 20.67 plus or minus acres of continuous upland, or 82% of the total upland on the site as open space. Pursuant to section 97.5C11A of the bylaw, such section qualifies the project for 2 bonus units, the maximum allowable for the 5-unit yield plan submitted. 6, as a consequence of findings 4 and 5 above, the 7 single-family building lots proposed by the applicant are allowed on the OSRD property. 7, again, anything on 6? No holds. 7, the applicant has met all the open space requirements. The open space shall be subject to the controls as required by the OSRD bylaw by means of either a conservation restriction or an open space restrictive covenant, which are described more fully below. 8, the project has met all of the OSRD design standards. 9, the proposal has less detrimental impact on the property than a conventional development proposed for the property and is consistent with the purpose and intent of the open space residential development bylaw. In so finding, the board has considered the following factors. A, the OSRD plan provides for greater flexibility and creativity in the design of the residential development, and the design is superior to a conventional subdivision. A subdivision layout of this tract of land. The dwelling and roadway layout reduce alteration of the site topography and preserve significant open space. There is a lesser impact from impervious surface than would result from a standard subdivision, and forested areas are being preserved. B, the layout provides for the permanent preservation of open space, including forested land and wetland resources. The entire northeastern portion of the site will be preserved as open space, which borders agricultural land to the west and forested land to the northeast, provides wildlife habitat, and supports existing wildlife corridors. C, the OSRD plan provides for a less sprawling and a more efficient form of development, which consumes less open space and conforms to existing topography and natural features better than a conventional subdivision. D, the plan, by clustering the buildings and utilizing the existing topography, excuse me, minimizes the total amount of disturbance on the site. Development is limited to the area which is already disturbed. E, the project furthers the goals and policies of Newbury's open space plan and master plan. The imposition of restrictions on the open space will protect it for the future. F, the OSRD concept is, as implemented by the plan, facilitates the construction and maintenance of housing, streets, and utilities and public services in a more economical and efficient manner than a conventional subdivision. G, the OSRD plan and its supporting documentation comply with all sections of the open space residential development bylaw. H, the plan preserves and enhances the community character. I, the quality of the proposed project with its dwellings, landscaping, and layout protects the value of real property. So I guess not hearing any hold on that, I'll continue. 10, the subdivision road is sufficient in design and layout to provide safe and adequate access to each dwelling. The requested dimensional waivers for the cul-de-sac are acceptable, provided that the road remain private. The building locations are consistent with the topography and area. 11, the requested waivers regarding identification of trees 6-inch in diameter and greater to be removed, drainage piping, and sidewalk bike walks are acceptable. That is to say, the requested waivers are acceptable. 12, the plan and project will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining districts, nor be detrimental to the public health, convenience, or welfare. The requested use is listed as a use allowed by this special permit and is desirable to the public convenience or welfare. The requested use and project will not create undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. The requested use and project will not overload any public water or drainage system or any other municipal system to such an extent that the requested or developed use or project in the immediate area or in any other area of town will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, or the general welfare. Lastly, 13, any special regulations for the use set forth in Newbury zoning bylaw article 5, section 97.5C, open space residential development are fulfilled, and the board can and has appropriately conditioned the special permit approval. And that is so those are the findings.
Thank you, Larry.
How do you want to proceed, Pete? You want to poll the board or?
Yeah, let's just make sure that everyone is comfortable with which has been discussed thus far. Larry, are you comfortable, sir?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. George?
Yes.
Very good. Leslie?
Yes.
Great. Woody?
Yes.
Great. Mary?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, let's proceed. Larry, thank you.
So you want to go to the conditions of approval?
Please, yes.
Okay. All right, decision pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A and the Newbury zoning bylaw, the planning board of the town of Newbury, after a public hearing and findings of fact, hereby grants an open space residential development special permit for 7 single-family building lots on the following conditions. Condition 1, recordation. The applicant shall record this special permit at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds before any work is undertaken on the site. While this special permit shall be deemed issued when filed with the town clerk, no development activity shall take place on the property until the special permit has been recorded at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds, and evidence of such recording has been provided to the planning director. If requested by the applicant, the board will endorse the plan to allow for its recordation. Lapse. The special permit shall lapse in 2 years, which shall not include such time required to pursue or await the determination of an appeal referred to in MGL Chapter 40A, Section 17, from the grant hereof, if a substantial use thereof has not sooner commenced except for good cause, or in the case of permit for construction, if construction has not begun by such date except for good cause. The roadway shall be completed to a binder course of pavement and inspected and approved by the board's consulting engineer within 2 years. That language is a mouthful, especially after the appeal, but I believe it's pretty much right out of the general laws, Martha, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it just tracks the statute. Modification, the special permit for the OSRD concept plan shall be reconsidered if there is substantial variation between the open space definitive subdivision plan and the concept plan. A substantial modification shall be any of the modifications described in Newbury zoning bylaw, Chapter 97, Article 5, 97-5C 13B. If the planning board finds that a substantial variation exists, it shall hold a public hearing on the modifications to the concept plan. Slight modifications to the design or layout of the structures and/or infrastructure or to the configuration of the open space around the structures and infrastructure, which prior to construction or site work are determined by the board or its designee to be minor, may be made to the project as field changes without the need for a modification of the special permit or a public hearing. The board reserves the right to allow such minor modification. Other appeals. The special permit shall not be construed or approval shall not be construed as approval from any other board, committee, official, or department. The conditions of approval of all other permits issued by other boards or agencies of the town of Newbury shall be considered conditions of approval under this special permit. In the event that said permits contain conditions conflicting with the conditions hereof, the planning board reserves the right to amend the conditions of this special permit after hearing as to render it consistent. Restriction on open space.
And this, if I may suggest, I think we may want to modify and really refer specifically to what the options in the bylaw, since this has not been determined yet.
Right. Yeah, so this needs a bit more work.
That needs more work. So that might be something to do in consultation with town council.
I agree.
I'm just going to highlight that if that's okay.
Okay. All right. So it's probably not necessary for me to read that then, I guess. Well, I suppose I go to the second paragraph in that part 5 anyway. I should probably read that. The applicant shall prepare an open space management plan, which plan shall be submitted to and approved by the planning board before the issuance of the certificate of occupancy, which approval shall not be unreasonably withheld, delayed, or conditioned. Any amendment to the open space management plan must be submitted to and approved by the planning board before becoming effective. Prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy, the town shall be granted an access easement substantially in the form that has been submitted by the applicant to the board to assure that such open space shall be so retained as open space and to assure that the requirements of the Town of Newbury bylaw, Chapter 97, Article 5, 97.5 C12C are met. The applicant shall record the access easement at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds. Roadway, septic system, and stormwater system maintenance. A corporation or homeowners association or trust shall be established and shall be responsible for maintenance of the right-of-way, including the cul-de-sac turnaround, the common septic system, and the stormwater management system. Okay, continuing on. 7, waste disposal system. Planning board approval is granted subject to approval by the Newbury Board of Health of the proposed common waste disposal system. 8, water supply. Planning board approval is granted with the understanding that the Byfield Water District will allow the applicant to connect to the existing water service in Coleman Road and that there is capacity in the system to support the development. The project shall receive any requisite approvals from the Byfield Water District for water supply to the development. 9, subdivision plan. This permit is subject to the approval of an open space definitive subdivision plan by the Newbury Planning Board under the subdivision control law. The open space definitive subdivision plan shall substantially comply with the approved OSRD concept plan. 10, further subdivision. No further subdivision will be allowed for any of the approved 7 single-family building lots. 11, preconditions to occupancy. Prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy, the conservation restriction, open space restrictive covenant, access easement, declaration of homeowners association, and homeowners association bylaws, and the open space management plan shall have been approved by the Board of Health, by the Planning Board, excuse me. The planning board shall provide the property owner with written notice of its approval of each document or written comments as to changes required for such approvals within 30 days after each of such documents has been delivered to the board. Approvals of a document by others shall not be a precondition to approval of that document by the planning board. As each document receives all requisite approvals, the title holder of the property shall record that approved document at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds and shall provide the planning board with such proof of recordings. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Larry. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Larry.
And you can have my drink of water right now, and I think that'd be good. Thank you, sir. Beautiful. So I think there are just a couple of things that I want to make sure that we understand in regards to just outstanding items on this first draft. And I want to make sure that everyone is comfortable with this. So I just want to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the number of bonus units that 2 will be approved. Larry.
I am.
Okay.
I think the project qualifies for the bonus units, and I think it's
Wonderful. Thank you. George.
Yes.
Wonderful. Leslie.
In agreement.
Wonderful. Thank you. Woody.
Yes. I have one clarification though. I never heard results on the flow test for the hydrants. I assume it wasn't a problem because we haven't heard about it.
Right. I think we had the flow test discussion. Was that 2 meetings ago, 3 meetings ago, Tom? And you were done. You were there at the time of the testing as well. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, and we have filed the report on that, and there's plenty of capacity in the system.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Woody. And Mary, with regards to
yes.
2 units.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm
beautiful.
fine. Pete, I just want to mention one thing. I actually my connection keeps going on and off, so just want to let you know that.
Okay.
Bring it back, but I think it's whatever. I don't know.
Okay.
Weather related.
Yeah, Mary, it might help if you turn off your video.
Off my video.
Okay.
So you've still got audio.
I
So we
do.
can't,
All right.
Yes,
Yes, we can. You're very good, and we are getting storms, so hopefully we'll continue without any interruption. Okay, so we defined that in fact the number of bonus units will be 2. I want to confirm that we're comfortable with the public parking at the cul-de-sac, in the cul-de-sac. Larry,
I am, yes.
wonderful. Larry, I'm sorry, George,
Yes,
wonderful. Leslie,
Yes.
okay, great. Woody,
Yes,
beautiful, and Mary.
Yes,
Okay, wonderful. So, and I also want to confirm that we now have a decision that the shed will be located to lot 1, and that we're all in agreement with that. Larry,
I'm good with that. Yep.
beautiful, thank you. George?
yes, I'm good with that. I'm not sure the language is completely changed to make that clear.
Okay,
But
I think,
I think it-
yeah, I think this is going to go to Brian, so we'll be getting a
Okay.
final draft on our next meeting.
Yeah, it says it's going to be moved to lot 1 or rebuilt on lot 1 and then relocated to any other place within the development. So I think it's just going to be lot 1 and it's going to be a period at that point, I believe.
Yes,
that's correct. And I will address that before it goes to Brian for review to
Thank you.
clarify what's happening.
thank you, George. Where am I? Leslie?
Yes.
This- Okay, and Woody
yes,
and Mary.
yes,
Okay, and so we've also determined at this meeting that there'll be a deed restriction with regards to the barn, the farmhouse, and now the shed, which will all be in lot 1 as the applicant has described. Larry, are you in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, George,
Yes,
wonderful. Leslie,
Yes.
great. Woody
yes.
and Mary.
yes.
Beautiful. Okay. Something that we haven't touched upon, and I asked Martha to try to figure out the witch stone, because this appears within the stone wall. From the existing condition survey, it appears that the stone wall is right on the boundary between Coleman Road and the right of way in the property. So I think we need to have a little discussion with this, with regards to this. So I'm going to first ask the applicant what he would propose for this to the board.
I believe you're right that the witch stone is on the right of way boundary. However, I think that it is outside, therefore, the right of way is much wider than the paved surface. I don't believe it's impacted by the paved surface. I believe it's outside of that. So I don't know if there's a preference as to how we further protect that stone. In fact, I'm surprised that it's where it's been, that it hasn't been seemingly impacted in the past. I don't know if there's a way of us. I don't really want to move it. I'd like to leave it where it is. I think it's outside of the paved and traveled areas. If certainly amenable to some kind of an appropriate visual, maybe a planting 10 feet either side of it in the shoulder to keep people away from it more deliberately, or something of that nature. I don't want to distract from the natural beauty of that, that area. But if there's some suggestion, then I'll certainly consider it.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, Tom, is you're pretty open to doing anything, but you don't want to move it.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't mind moving it, I just, anytime, you consider that, I mean, we would do it with all caution if we needed to, or if somebody wanted us to. I don't want to move it to the Smithsonian with the rest of them. I think it belongs here. but
I would agree with you. It does belong here, and it's part of the history of our community. I think it's important to maintain it within the community. So I just want to ask Martha, do you have any thoughts on this or any discussion points that we might want to entertain with the board, since we've kind of determined where this is?
And I guess one of the questions is, assuming that everybody wants to maintain it and protect it, are there provisions that should be included in the decision for doing that, since it's right on the right of way, the boundary? and the right of way, whose responsibility is it?
Well, that's.
Go ahead, Larry.
No, I was going to say, that's sort of the big question I have, and I'm not sure I have a clear understanding. I mean, when you sell, when lot 7 is sold, does the Witchstone go with it? Or is it within the, or is it town property within the right of way?
That's a really interesting question, Larry, actually. That's an interesting question. I guess that's maybe a question for council as to whether or not being in the right on the right of way, does that make it town? I mean, I guess the other alternative, I mean, it would be safe and protected if we put it back at the pedestrian access easement into the open space and put it back, in a protected location. Certainly would get more appreciated there, even though where it is now, I mean, people can see it. I don't think people appreciate it driving by necessarily. Most people, I don't think know it's really there or see it. If that's something that you'd like me to do, I mean, I think putting it at the entrance to the open space might be a really nice way of making sure that it's protected and making sure that it stays here.
In that way, it could also be incorporated into the documents too, the open space documents.
Yeah, and then there's no question. We don't have to debate the ownership or any of that type of thing. We just we get it onto the open space and it's protected and preserved there.
Larry?
I think that's a very good suggestion.
Okay, great. George, thoughts on the stone and the fact that it's kind of in this twilight zone and we don't know who would be.
I think Tom's comments are very wise, and I recommend that they go forward that way.
Okay, thank you very much, George. Leslie?
If the stone remains and it goes with the deed of the property, would it fall into a historical, the house and the stone would be historical and would have to go under a different covenant?
I don't know the answer to that question, Leslie, because Martha, it's not, is it landmarked historical right now, or is it just recognized?
It's recognized, and it's certainly recognized in the, the Historic Commission's pamphlet of sort of historically significant spots through town. And I think I'd be reluctant to do something with it without kind of getting input from the commission.
Okay.
There have been other suggestions, maybe an appropriate place for it would be the Governor's Academy, since it was originally there, apparently.
Okay.
But
okay.
Can I make a suggestion, Peter, if I could? Yeah. I think you see where my perspective is on this and most things. I mean, I think I'd be fine with a condition to move it at the direction of either this board or the historical commission or whatever. I'm amenable to that.
Okay.
To that being open to a collaborative decision that I'm sensitive to not wanting to hold up the process, but certainly I think that's an easy thing to condition.
Okay.
For future action.
All right. Leslie, let me now go over to Woody. Woody, your thoughts?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not crazy about moving it. If you damage it, if something was to happen to it, it snapped in half because you moved it, that's kind of detrimental too. I mean, it hasn't been hit where it is. If it's a question for legal counsel to ask them, or if we could determine if it's in the right of way or if it's in lot 7, I'd be for leaving it right where it is.
Okay, thank you.
That's my opinion.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Woody. Mary. Oh, we might have lost Mary. Okay. Martha, I think we need to do a little discussion with Brian on this topic as to who
Yes.
has kind of oversight with this historical piece of Newbury, and with guidance maybe from the historical folks to see what their perspective is. And I understand that Tom wants to have this conditioned, but I think we have to have this kind of rolled around legally a little bit. Are you in
Yeah.
agreement?
I agree.
Okay, all right. Let's see, are there any other conditions in this first draft that board members want to add in? Larry?
No, I have nothing.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. George?
None.
Great. Leslie?
No,
Okay, thank you, Leslie. Woody?
No,
Okay, great. Mary? Okay, I have big thunder rolling around outside, so I think that's probably what's going on with some of our internet stuff, folks.
yeah,
Okay, so I understand, Martha, that Brian has agreed to review the decision.
Yes.
So let's see if we can get him to make his comments, and let's see if we can get a resolution to what should happen with our piece of history with the Witchstone, and reach out to historical as well. And then see what we can do with the buttoning this up on these for the second draft decision.
Are you-
Tom, yes, go ahead.
I was going to ask, would you be open to taking any further public comment? Ben Armstrong has his hand raised.
Oh, sure, I sure would. Thanks very much, Martha. I just can't see because I have the decision. Could we drop the screen share down so we can see what public is out there? Thank you very much. Great. Okay, so did you say that Chris Armstrong had his hand up?
Ben Armstrong.
Ben.
Ben Armstrong. Okay, go ahead, Ben.
So pursuant to what Larry was asking about section 5, and I think my chief question about that is that the designation of who is going to be the steward of the open space is sort of up in the air, and I don't think it's addressed in the document as it is. So I'm wondering, has there been a response from Greenbelt? Because I think that was one of the points from the last meeting. That someone was going to reach out and see if they'd be interested, or, alternatively, could it be part of the farmland expand, part of the open space?
Sure, let me try to direct that question. I know that Martha had a walk today. Martha, do you want to make any comment on what took place today?
Well, I did reach out to Greenbelt, and we did have a site walk. So the contact has been made and we'll be following up, but certainly no determination has been made at this point.
Great. I think my chief concern about that is stemming from the nearby Caldwell property, where I think it was intended to be open space. And then when it was turned over to the homeowners association, they said, as I understand it, that it wasn't open space.
Yeah.
And I want to be sure that that is not the case with this.
Yeah, and that's actually not the case there either.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
But at least at this point, it's not. So
Okay.
So
All right. Thank you very much.
Great.
That's been
Great.
resolved.
Yeah, so I guess what I can say, Ben, is this is a work in progress, and we're working to try to get that answer.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
So I think in terms of the condition for this one, again, I'll work with Brian on that just to make sure that it reflects what, what's required by the bylaw, and that would need to be resolved, before the first occupancy permit, or, tied to something.
Great. Martha, I just want to ask, Tom, do you have any comments or questions regarding the conditions in our first draft? Anything you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think, obviously, I think everybody knows that my interest is in reaching conclusion on these things. I realize some things need to be reviewed. I think that a flexible condition with regard to the Witchstone is certainly fine, even if it means that if it's determined by a more detailed survey that it's on lot 7 and we want it to stay, then we just put a deed restriction on lot 7 and preserve it that way. I mean, it's definitely something that can be that can be conditioned to be taken care of pursuant to decision and direction by the board and by council. I mean, I still, you know, I think everybody knows my feeling about the public versus private. I've expressed it a number of times. I understand the precedents that you have and the precedents that you might be creating. And we did our best to design this to the vehicular standards and safety standards, but I also don't want to have a debate about something that already has some precedent set with you folks. So I understand that as well. But otherwise, no, I think the everything is acceptable there.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Leslie, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just clarification.
Sure.
So if it's open space, can Tom donate the land to, if it's not Greenbelt, but could he donate it to the town? And then if the town took it over and became the stewards of the land, would they be able to lease the land out for recreational or farming?
Well, yeah, it's a wooded lot, Leslie, and I think the intention is to try to maintain it the way it is. But let me just clarify that with Martha as to what the options are with regards to going forward down that path.
Right. I mean, there's several options. One of which it could be conveyed to a nonprofit, land protection organization such as Greenbelt. It could be conveyed to the town. It could be held by the homeowners association with a conservation restriction, held by the Conservation Commission in the town. So there are a number of options, and I think at this point, all of them are being explored. In terms of leasing it actually for recreational use, the recreational use law specifically states that it can't be leased for that purpose. If people are going to be using it, there should be no charge for people to use it.
So it would be just for natural use.
Right.
Okay.
Passive recreation.
Passive recreation, right. Thank you. That term was eluding me.
No, that's all right. We've done a lot of it, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see another hand up from probably a public comment. Martha?
Lucy Armstrong.
Lucy Armstrong, name and address, please. Thanks.
Hi, yes, I'm Lucy Armstrong. I am the daughter of Chris and Liz Armstrong, but I live in Georgetown. So I'm at 31 North Street in Georgetown. And my only comment was just, I don't know if this is the most likely, but I just wanted to mention about the uses that are approved of in OSRD are conservation to the town, to a homeowners association, but there's one that there's a fourth one and it continues to not be mentioned. It's just a private owner for agricultural, horticultural, or forestry uses. And I just wanted to put it out there just because it is a fourth one that is listed, but hasn't been mentioned previously. That's all.
Great. Thank you for the clarification, Lucy. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Okay. So I think the second draft needs to be reviewed with council and incorporate some of the things that we discussed, and we have to iron out the conditions for the Witchstone or where that's going to follow. And I just want to make sure that that's where we're at. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to continue the OSRD special permit and subdivision plan hearing to June 2nd at 7:15 with the understanding that we would be having a final draft for that with these couple questions ironed out. And we'll also have, I think, some of Joe's comments also ironed out. This will keep us within our date. Martha, we need to have a definitive decision by what date?
So currently, we need to have a decision filed with the town clerk on the definitive plan by June 17th.
Okay. All right. That being the case, if the board is comfortable, I would entertain A motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, so George, you made the motion and Larry, you seconded. Thank you very much. On the motion, any discussion? Any discussion, Larry?
No.
Any discussion, George?
None.
Any discussion, Leslie?
No,
Great. Any discussion, Woody?
None.
Any discussion, Mary?
No,
Okay, on the motion, how do you vote, Larry?
Yes.
Thank you. George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Leslie, how do you vote?
yes,
Thank you. Woody, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mary, how do you feel?
yes.
Great. And the chair is also in favor. So we will be having you back here within I think, is that about a week or so, Martha?
A week from today.
A week from today. Tom, attorneys will review this. We'll
Now,
have-
Peter, could I ask a quick question on that?
You can, Tom.
I appreciate that. You know, we still have the definitive subdivision hearing as well. I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily to discuss because the plans are one and the same. But is that something that we can begin drafting a decision on as well?
Well, we actually just continued both the OSRD special permit and the definitive subdivision plan hearing for the second. And at that time, we still need some comments from Joe on the revised definitive subdivision plan before that draft decision can be made. Where do we stand with Joe's comments, Martha?
Well, he sent in the comments which were received today, so I have not yet sent him the draft decision for his comments. And I think, you know, to Tom's points, I think Joe's comments on conditions might be more relevant for the definitive subdivision plan decision than they are for the OSRD.
All right, Tom, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I understand that that it has to be open. I would just ask if at the May or at the June 2nd meeting, if unless there's something other than an administrative task, if we can try to direct for a decision to be drafted for the follow-up meeting to that. And there's many reasons for that. It's not just my business urgencies or pressures, but also I want Concom to be able to make to conclude their work. I think it's reasonable for them to close their hearing, but I don't want to speak for them. So I want to be careful of getting into this issue of prolonging hearings because we have two open hearings, with Concom and planning, and I don't want to get into a position where because of the dates of the meetings we extended too far. Peter, that's it.
Right, we're turning this around in a week, Tom, which is as quick as we can.
Absolutely. Much appreciated.
Yep, okay, beautiful.
Okay.
I mean, it might be possible to at least, get a draft going for the 16th. It would not be possible to have one done for the 2nd.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. Yeah.
So if the board would like me to start working on one for review at the 16th, that might be possible, but obviously that's up to you all.
What is the
Can you
feeling?
start the draft?
So let me ask the feeling of the board to have Martha start a draft for the definitive plan decision. Larry?
If Martha's comfortable with it, I am. But I don't know, Martha, that doesn't give you a lot of time.
That's two.
It's 3 weeks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were shooting for the 2nd. No, that's
No,
fine.
I would not, no, especially not with what I hope I will be able to take as a holiday on Monday.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's fine.
Beautiful, great. George?
That's fine.
Beautiful. Leslie?
Yes,
Great. Woody?
Sounds good, yes.
Mary?
Unpermitting for Martha, of course.
Yes, it is. So we should probably have it in the form of a motion.
I would move we direct the town planner, or request the town planner with the input from town council to give us a first draft of the decision on the subdivision plan.
Great.
second,
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Discussion, Larry?
No discussion.
Great discussion, George.
No.
Discussion, Woody.
None.
Discussion, Leslie.
No,
Discussion, Mary.
No.
On the motion, Larry.
Yes.
Great. George on the motion.
Yes.
Great. Leslie on the motion.
yes,
Great. Woody on the motion.
Yes.
Great. Mary, how do you feel?
Yes.
Okay, the chair is also in clear, in agreement. Okay, Martha, more marching orders there. Great. So this will be continued to the 7th, I'm sorry, to the 2nd at 7:15. Great. Tom, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I know it was more time than you planned for me, but I appreciate the attention tonight. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep, bye-bye.
All right, let me see. Pull up the agenda. Do I have this agenda? It's over here. Okay, so continuing on our agenda for this evening, let's see, let's pull this down. This would be a public hearing, continued public hearing, the definitive subdivision of plan application 217-221 High Road, map R27, lots 51, 53, 54, and 56. Applicant is Gadsden Lane LLC. Adam True manager, owners DMD Money Trust, Dale Hutchindale and Carl Brown, trustees lots 51, 53, and Carl Brown and Margaret Brown, estate of Margaret Brown, lots 54, 56, continued from May 5th, 2021. For the record, George Morse was not present for the 5/5/21 session of the public hearing. He has watched the video of the public hearing session, has provided requested necessary certification to the planning director. I'm going to ask the applicant and/or engineer to present any new or updated materials.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Douglas DeShane, representing Gadsden Lane LLC. With me this evening, Adam True, manager of Gadsden Lane LLC, and Scott Cameron, our engineer from the Cameron Moran Group. We did recently submit a revised plan that I believe addressed just a couple of minor issues that were pointed out on the plan. Scott, do you want to just give them a quick overview of what those changes were? I know they were very minor, but were required.
Sure, Doug. For the record, Scott Cameron with the Moran Cameron Group. Thanks for having us tonight. They were minor. It was Martha caught a discrepancy of 1 square foot between the land area referenced on the cover sheet and the land area on the existing conditions plan. This was a application software rounding thing that we corrected. So the correct number is on the cover sheet. And then we, of course, added the May 5th revision date to the full plan set, which is in keeping with the single plan you did receive before the prior meeting, which addressed the final comments on the stormwater by peer review. But otherwise, we have very little else to present or enter into the record tonight.
Great. Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Scott. I'm just going to question the board if there are any new questions or concerns. Larry, any new questions or concerns, sir?
No.
Great. George, any new questions or concerns?
I don't.
Great. Leslie, any new questions or concerns?
no,
Great. Thank you. Woody, any new questions or concerns?
None.
Thank you. Mary, any new questions or concerns? Okay, beautiful. So on our public hearing, 5/5, we directed the planning director to draft a decision on the definitive subdivision plan application. But I want to see if there's any questions from the public before we go through that. Have we received any public comments since our last session, Martha?
No, we have not.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this this application?
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. So I guess, Larry, we're going to probably do our review of the draft decision again. Martha, can you screen share that?
I will certainly hope so.
Okay.
Are you able to see that?
Yes, and we just need to make it a little bit larger. Beautiful. So our project description is as we've seen in the past, and with regards to 0.58 acres, is that correct, Martha? We're outside of the wetlands, but we lie within the ACEC?
Right. The reason for this is that because the total acreage, the wetland area and the upland area doesn't actually add up to the total acreage of the parcel. There's a portion of it that is actually within the ACEC. So
in ACEC, just for public, is the areas of critical environmental concern. That's correct, Martha? Okay.
that's correct. So I'd actually pose this to Scott if he feels comfortable with this, because it sort of reflects what was described to me.
Scott, that's a question to you.
Yeah, that is, as I'm muting, I think that is fine with me.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you. So continuing on the description of the lot of the area appears to be appropriate, Martha?
Yes.
Okay, so continuing through our narrative. Any questions or concerns with regards to, that is page 2 or page 3? Page 2. Okay, seeing none, we'll continue. And this is just with regards to materials that have been submitted with one modification of the definitive plan of January 13th.
Yeah, that was the plan date, which does not, it's not the same as the filing date, which was February 3rd. So
Okay.
that's why that's highlighted.
All right. And the correspondence are recorded. And with regards to the procedural history. Okay. And waivers of subdivision rules and regulations. So our waivers, we have, are there 4 waivers? Do I remember correctly, Martha?
That's correct.
Okay. And we have discussed these.
That's correct.
The board has been comfortable with those waivers that we have discussed. Okay. All right. Larry, I'm going to punt it over to you.
All right, we want to do, so we're good with waivers? Want to
Yes.
do decision and conditions of approval?
Please, thank you.
All right, and once again, I'll just continue on. If anyone has any questions, we'll just put a hold. Is that okay?
That's great, thanks.
Prior to endorsement of the plan, the following shall be completed by the applicant prior to the endorsement of the plan by the board. Security, the applicant shall provide a reasonable performance guarantee for the construction of ways and the installation of services by one of the methods described in section 81U of the subdivision control law and in accordance with section 117-18H of the subdivision rules and regulations, which method or combination of methods may be selected and from time to time varied by the applicant as provided by law. 2, reference. The applicant shall make reference to these conditions of approval on the plans referencing the date, contents, and vote of the planning board. B, prior to start of clearing and construction. Prior to the start of clearing and construction, other than that required for surveying or testing, or for the installation of erosion control measures, a pre-construction meeting shall take place to include at a minimum the developer, the contractor, the board's review engineer, the planning director, the conservation agent, and a representative of the Newbury Department of Public Works. The limit of work and extent of tree clearing shall be clearly marked prior to the pre-construction conference. C, prior to occupancy. The following shall be completed prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for any new dwelling unit. 1, declaration of homeowners trust and declaration of restrictive covenants running with the land. The applicant shall deliver to the planning board for review and approval a declaration of homeowners trust and declaration of restrictive covenants running with the land and shall contain the details for maintenance of the road, including but not limited to snow plowing and dust control and maintenance of the stormwater management system as shown on the plan, including lots 2 and 3. The declaration shall include a condition that the subdivision way has been approved on the basis that it shall always remain a private road open to the public and shall not be offered to the town of Newbury for acceptance as a public way. D. Whoops, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Larry, I think we do need to just hit on that.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I skipped ahead. Go ahead, Pete.
So Martha, refresh for us the vegetation requirements and we talked about and there's going to be.
So the plan that was submitted to the board last time showed a vegetated filter strip going mostly down. I believe it's lot 2. I'm not sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. And there was some language. Originally, it had been suggested that there be an easement for that. There was some discussion that that might not be the appropriate mechanism. But, you know, some language that would be a, you know, restriction on the lot, if you will, making sure that the homeowner didn't put something in the way of that flow that would disturb it, such as a swimming pool or a patio or you know, do inappropriate clearing or something like that. And, you know, I think Attorney DeShane sort of got the gist of that conversation, but that's why I flagged that here.
So I'm going to ask the applicant, what is your, attorney, what is your recommendation to address this? I think you had mentioned it at our last meeting.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman, I think the idea of us potentially showing the area to be maintained on a plan, and then as part of the homeowner's restrictive covenants, we can expressly provide that the owners of lot 2 and 3 cannot, you know, remove trees or vegetation or in any way disturb the area shown as, you know, no disturb on the plan. So we'll actually provide a plan that shows the specific area they can't touch. And then I can draft as part of the covenant language, which is, you know, will be provided for review and approval by the board, that restricts any, you know, any disturbance of that area except for, you know, emergency forestry management. Obviously, if a tree falls and is in danger of harming somebody, you know, the homeowner would have the right to just go in and clear it, you know, not dig the stump or anything like that, but, you know, take away the dangerous limbs. But other than that, we can covenant that they can't touch the area that we show on the plan. So I think that's the most exacting way to do that.
So Doug, let me ask you, from an enforcement standpoint, who's going to take care of that?
Well,
because we can come up with it, but down the road, 10 years from now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if it's part of the homeowner's trust and the declaration covenants and you have, you know, you have everyone buying into it, the homeowners association has to understand that a violation could result in occupancy permits being suspended or pulled. The other thing we could do, Mr. Chairman, is agree to place a notice in both the purchase and sales agreements and in the deeds for lot 2 and 3, notifying the owners that that covenant exists. I mean, I can't think of a more comprehensive manner to put everyone on notice that it exists. That way, we certainly don't run into a, you know, someone clears it by accident or because they didn't know. In terms of the enforcement, I would hope that the other members of the homeowners trust, they're usually a very good self-regulating body. And if the other lot owners know that if people on lots 2 and 3 disturb those areas, that their entire subdivision is in danger, I would suspect you'll have some people keeping an eye on it. Other than that, you know, it's just like when we have no disturb areas as part of a conservation restriction. We, you know, we do the best we can to keep an eye on it, and we make people aware of it, which I think is the most important thing.
Yeah. Let me see. I see Scott raising his hand. I'm wondering if he has another solution for this. Scott.
I have another idea to add on to all that. And actually, if anybody does go into this area, it's within the 100-foot buffer zone to the wetland. So the Conservation Commission has, very well, tested enforcement for anything in there that's done unauthorized. And I think that's ultimately, that doesn't go away. That's perpetual and something the commission can go in at any time and enforce.
Okay, let me just see where the board is with this. So Larry, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think there are solutions here, and we probably don't need to have every detail in this document because it's going to be reviewed. I mean, perhaps one way to think about it would be give the homeowners association an easement over this area to maintain it for drainage purposes and put an affirmative obligation on the HOA to do it, so that if someone interferes with it, they have the right to go in and do the work themselves. And even I've seen even documents where they can charge it back to the property owner, to the lot owner. But I think that's something that can be worked out in time with town council.
Okay, great. Thanks, Larry. George?
Yeah, I agree with Larry. It's a good comment.
Beautiful. Leslie?
I agree with Larry's comments. I do have a concern that if it goes over to the Concom, I mean, do we expect them to police this particular parcel to make sure that, or do we hope that the HOA stands guard over it and makes reports?
Yeah, I think there are two layers of enforcement that are being proposed. One is the HOA and the second would be conservation. If I understand the discussion correctly.
Mr. Chair, too, if I could.
Sure.
The other thing, I just from a practical perspective, we are relying on the forest, floor to do the work for us, right? That's why we put this in here. But that was only because we don't want to go in and clear the trees right now. But the way the vegetated filter strip functions under the stormwater management handbook is it doesn't necessarily have to be a forest floor. It can also be a lawn. Lawns are actually very good filters of that last flush of stormwater. Okay. So I think that ultimately the intent of it is fairly robust. We just don't want to see things necessarily like pools or obstructions that are going to change that. And again, the buffer zone, any alteration within there, at the end of the day, are people going to, do people do things? Yes. Do we have easy ways to find this? From what I experience in the industry, ultimately the commission's going to find it. If people are doing work in the buffer zone, I see very little stuff going through because you have Google and aerials and all sorts of ways of looking at what's changed over the years. Just the amount of data is out there. So, this is a common conversation about, we put things in and we try to make them as robust and, kind of bulletproof as possible. So even if somebody is doing something, is it really going to, make an impact? Is it going to change anything? Personally, that's just one of my design approaches to everything we do. So I think there's a lot of fail safes here, and it's going to take a fairly substantial worst case scenario. And with regards to any structures, it's also on the lot line between the two properties, so it would be violating zoning setbacks if they put anything in those areas as well. So it's another layer of it's going to take a heck of a lot of illegal activity, for them to get something in there to change that design feature.
Leslie, does that address your concern?
Yes, it does, definitely.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Woody, concerns or questions?
I have no concerns or questions. Everyone's pretty much brought up a solution.
Okay,
I think.
Beautiful. Thank you, Woody. Mary, concerns, questions? Well, I'm not sure if we have Mary.
We may have lost her.
Okay. Larry, I'll let you continue on then. Thanks so much.
And Mary seems
So,
muted, excuse me.
all right, so C2, road surface. The subdivision road shall be surfaced with the binder course prior to application for any occupancy permits for any structures served by the roadway. This requirement is to ensure adequate emergency access to each dwelling unit for which occupancy is being sought. 3, utilities. All utilities serving structures which are served by the subdivision road shall be satisfactorily installed, tested, inspected by the board's review engineer, and approved by the board prior to application for any occupancy permits for any structures serviced by such utilities. D, subdivision road. The subdivision road shall be installed according to the Town of Newbury subdivision regulations as stated in section 117-33D and according to the waivers approved herein. The road will remain private in perpetuity and the town shall assume no liability. E, screening. The applicant shall make all reasonable efforts to work and cooperate with the abutters to provide adequate visual screening of the subdivision road and new houses from the view of abutting properties where needed, using a combination of appropriate evergreen trees and shrubs. In particular, the applicant shall execute a written agreement with the abutter at 223 High Road, confirming the proposed screening between the abutter's property and the new lots as described in a letter dated March 16, 2021, written by Douglas DeShane. This screening shall be in place prior to the issuance of occupancy permits for lots 1 and 2. Okay, F, snow removal. The entire length and width of the subdivision road, including the paved area of the turnaround at the end of the cul-de-sac, shall be kept clear of snow and ice to ensure adequate emergency access to all structures within the subdivision at all times. G, rock and ledge removal. Hydraulic hammers and similar equipment may be used for rock and ledge removal. Blasting, ? Abutters shall be notified at least 7 days in advance when rock and ledge removal activities are scheduled to take place. And we see we have a note here regarding blasting. Is their intent to blast?
Mr. Chairman, I can answer that question. It's always been our intention to utilize hydraulic hammers and similar equipment to remove the ledge. However, there is always a possibility that if the ledge is of a certain magnitude, that blasting in many ways can be a more efficient and a much quicker way of removing it, and certainly cuts down on the noise of the hydraulic hammers, which those things going on for hours on end can be nerve-wracking. I'm wondering, does the board have a standard blasting protocol condition that in the event we are, if it is determined that it is in the best interest to blast in terms of timing and noise, that is there a protocol that the board generally applies that we could use? I know in many towns, they do have a sort of a standard blasting protocol that requires pre-blast surveys, coordination through the fire department, and all the other requirements. We're certainly not adverse to accepting any and all standard conditions the board has or the town has, but we would ask for your consideration of at least putting that blasting protocol in here. And if we find out that, again, the hydraulic hammers are not going to do it, that we could, do some limited blasting provided we meet your protocol.
Okay. To answer the question, yes, Doug. So Martha, we need to come up with some language if the board is comfortable with that regarding blasting and the standards correct, and that would be also kind of helped out along with Brian.
Yes, I mean, we've got some language that we've used on other projects, so I can put that in here and just run it by Brian. It's really, subject to permit from the fire department, and they will require all of the state procedures to be followed in the pre-blast survey within, X number. I think it's 700, radius of 700 feet or something like that. So
I think we dealt with that similar language in the 84 Boston Road decision, Martha, didn't we not?
well, I know that it's in the Newbury self-storage
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
then
we,
this language out there, I can't quote it verbatim.
yeah, no, we do have language. So what I'll do is I'll put that language in here and then run it by Brian and just make sure that he doesn't, and also by the fire chief to make sure that he's comfortable with it.
Wonderful. Okay. We'll continue on, Larry.
H, fire department. Any and all conditions placed on the project by the fire department, in addition to those noted herein, are hereby incorporated into and made a part of this decision. I, Board of Health, the applicant shall obtain any and all necessary approvals from the Town of Newbury Board of Health under Title V for septic system installation. Copies of the designs for the individual septic systems shall be submitted to the Planning Board. J, Conservation Commission. Planning Board approval is granted with the understanding that an order of conditions from the Conservation Commission for work to be done in connection with the definitive subdivision plan be required. In connection with the definitive subdivision plan is not required. The applicant shall obtain any and all necessary approvals from the Conservation Commission for further construction on the individual lots. Can I just take a moment and see if I can absorb that? I'm not sure I read it correctly. It's not required. Okay. Should I continue?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Lot grading plans. All grading on individual lots shall be done in accordance with the approved site plan sheets 4 and 8 of the approved definitive subdivision plan to ensure that stormwater drainage patterns as designed are not altered or adversely impacted during or after construction. Final grading plans for the individual lots shall be presented to the planning director and the planning board's review engineer for review prior to issuance of building permits. L, post-construction plans. Upon completion of construction and before release of the final portion of the performance guarantee, the applicant shall have prepared and submitted record drawings which shall indicate the actual location of all improvements, including but not limited to buildings, stormwater management facilities, roadway edges, locations and inverts of the required utilities and drainage, and location of underground utilities. A professional engineer and land surveyor, both of whom are licensed to conduct business in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, shall stamp such plans. M, inspections. Inspections shall be carried out during construction in accordance with the provisions of Article 6, of the subdivision rules and regulations. The cost of inspection shall be borne by the applicant, who will provide funds to be placed in an interest-bearing escrow account established in order to pay consultant fees for these inspections. N, recordation. The plan shall be recorded at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds before any work is undertaken on the site. While the plan shall be deemed approved when filed with the town clerk, no development activity shall take place on the property until the plan has been endorsed by the planning board following the statutory 20-day appeal period and recorded at the Southern Essex District Registry of Deeds, and evidence of such recording has been provided by the planning director. Lapse. The approval of the plan shall lapse in 2 years, which shall not include such time required to pursue or await the determination of an appeal referred to, and I think that should be Chapter 41, Section 81 BB.
That's what I think, but I will confirm that with council because the 48.
Yeah,
section 17
I believe that's correct, Martha.
Yeah, the other one is for special permit, so I'm not sure why that was in the other language that I took this from.
Cut and paste, that's all.
Yeah.
From the grant hereof, if a substantial use thereof is not sooner commenced except for good cause, or in the case of permit for construction, if construction has not begun by such date except for good cause. And I believe, and modification. Slight modifications to the design or layout of the structures and or infrastructure which prior to construction or site work are determined by the board or its designate to be minor may be made to the project as field changes without the need for modification of this definitive plan or a public hearing. The board reserves the right to allow such minor modifications. Substantial modifications shall require a public hearing. And
Thank you.
that.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate that. Martha, was there a concern or a question that you had from an administrative standpoint?
Um, If I am, I'm blank here. There is.
Okay, it was regarding approval, I think, from other boards and commissions.
Oh, right. Whether, as written right now, there are conditions about fire department and conservation and Board of Health. And in some of our decisions, there's a kind of blanket statement saying that this doesn't constitute approval from any other board, et cetera, et cetera. So perhaps that's something I could run by town council as well.
Yeah, that would be appropriate.
I think we have that language in the decision we just reviewed a short while ago tonight, so you could just.
It's something we typically have in the site plan review and special permit decisions, but looking back on subdivision, we don't seem to have exactly that same language. So.
There's certainly no harm in including it.
Right.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might, I think the applicant would have no issue with that condition, as it's really just stating the truth that, this doesn't constitute any other approvals other than from your board. So we're comfortable with that condition. It is typical.
Okay, great. Let me just see if the board members have any other conditions that they feel would be appropriate or necessary. Larry, do you have any other thoughts?
I don't.
Okay, great. George, do you have any other conditions? Okay, thank you, George. Leslie?
None.
Okay, Woody?
No, I don't.
Okay, great. Mary? I'm not sure if we have Mary. Okay, Martha, we can probably stop screen sharing if that'd be okay?
No, sorry, Pete.
Okay.
I lose my connection. I'm sorry.
You're with us now, which is what's important. Beautiful. Okay, let me ask the applicant if they have any questions or comments regarding the draft decision, particularly with regards to the conditions.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Scott Cameron, I did have one comment on L, which talks about the post-construction plans. The way the condition's written is the developer would have to get a stamp by a professional engineer and a professional land surveyor, which he's basically paying a professional twice to do the same work. I think that statement could or should be an or statement, that either one is fine to stamp the plan. They would both be going through the same due diligence and putting that together. Just kind of a redundant licensure that, it doubles the cost of the plan for the developer.
Let me just ask Martha, your thoughts on why that was included in our language?
I'll double check what the requirements are in the subdivision rules and regs.
Great. Okay.
So it should be consistent with that language.
Okay, that's what we'll do, Scott.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think we understand that Brian is going to be reviewing this decision, and Joe is going to review to see if any things that he has to work on. So if the board's in agreement, I would like to continue this and to the 2nd of June, 7:15. For our final draft. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt. My client is running up against a time constraint with respect to his purchase and sales agreement. He was given a certain period of time to do his due diligence and obtain his permits, and we're really running up against that. Is there a possibility the board would consider closing the public hearing and voting subject to the revisions and review by town council?
I don't know if we'd be comfortable doing that, to tell you the truth, Doug, because we haven't had council look at this yet. And if there's anything significant that needs to be modified, and if we close it, then we're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem.
I understand.
So, yep. So we have a week. So we're coming back in a week, and that gives Martha, is that going to be enough time for you and Brian to get together with this?
I believe so. And
Okay.
we are aware the applicant has granted an extension until June 7th to file the decision with the town clerk. So,
Okay.
The intention is to have it finalized, voted on, and signed in time to meet that deadline.
So
I understand. I appreciate that. I understand now. I know sometimes after a vote and a signature, it does take a significant time to get it to the clerk. But if your schedule is such that it could be there by the 7th, and I do, I'm now just realizing June 2nd is next week, so
Right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, the intention is to get you to the finish line when you need to be there.
Works for me as well.
Okay, great. Okay, so I would entertain a motion.
I'd move to continue the public hearing until June 2nd at 7:15 PM.
Beautiful. There has been a motion. Is there a second?
Second,
There's a second. Thank you, Leslie. On the motion, any discussion, Larry?
No discussion.
Great discussion, George.
No.
Discussion, Leslie.
no,
Discussion, Woody.
No,
Discussion, Mary. Oh, great. On the motion, how do you vote, Larry?
Yes.
Thank you, George. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Leslie, on the motion, how do you vote?
yes,
Great. Woody, on the motion, how do you vote?
yes.
Great. And Mary, how do you feel about the motion?
Yes, yes, yes.
Beautiful. And the chair is in favor as well. Great. So, guys, we'll see you back in 1 week.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. We appreciate your time. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Martha, if I understand this correctly, we have nothing else on our agenda. Is that the case?
That's correct. These were the only two items.
Oh, that's a beautiful thing. And let's see, it's 9 o'clock. That's a beautiful thing as well. Let me just see if the board members have any other questions or concerns. Larry?
No. No.
Beautiful. George?
No.
Great. Leslie?
are we going live next time?
We don't have the answer to that question yet. I think it's being.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, the June
Other
2nd,
than that,
yeah, the current meetings through June will be remote. The current plan is that we'll go in person on July 1st. I understand that the governor is requesting some legislation which may change that. I don't know if that will change what dates the town is looking at.
Oh, that's great.
So
Getting back, getting back.
that's all I have.
All right.
more
Woody,
info to follow.
great. Woody, do you have anything?
No, that was the only question I had actually was when we were going back live.
Okay, beautiful. Mary, and
No, sir.
beautiful. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to
moved.
adjourn.
Who made that motion? I couldn't tell. There were so many voices.
Many people did.
All right,
To George,
George
I think
made
it was
that motion.
George. I think it was
And who's
George.
going to second that motion?
I'll second.
All right, Woody seconds the motion. Okay, there we have it. Okay, on the motion, any discussion? I don't think there's going to be any discussion. Great.
No.
Larry, how do you vote?
I vote yes on the
Okay,
motion.
beautiful. And on the motion, George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Beautiful. Leslie?
yes?
Great. Woody?
Yes, and thank you and good night, everyone.
Beautiful. Mary, how do you feel?
Yes, indeedy. And thank you all so much, Martha and Pete, always. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Everybody stay cool.
Yeah, stay dry, stay cool, and stay safe. And everybody have a great holiday weekend.
You too,
That's
All
right.
everybody, yeah.
Thank
See
you
you
very
next
much, Martha.
Wednesday.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you all.
Good night now.
Good night.
Thank you, Martha.